My friends, hello. While preparing this report several times, I felt like giving up, moving on to something else, making another video. But I persisted because I believe that weather is the biggest killer in general aviation and that this debrief can save lives. We're going to November 14, 2023 in Florida, just a bit south of Orlando. The weather that November is terrible. For several days now, in fact, there's been a low pressure system over the region. And regularly there are clouds that are very low, sometimes almost touching the ground. The sky is overcast just a few hundred feet up with rain and wind. And actually in there we have a pilot who is 21 years old with about 60 hours of experience and who bought a plane. His parents bought him a plane 9 days ago. The plane is a Piper aircraft, 28, it's a Cherokee as we say. It dates from 1964. And when you look at the dashboard, I found a picture of that dashboard. Honestly, the last time I saw instruments like that, I know they exist. The last time I saw instruments like that was more in aviation museums. It was when you look at warbirds, when you see those warplanes from World War II, well, they have that kind of instrument, but I've never seen them in operation. Actually, take the artificial horizon, for example. It's just a black disc with an airplane drawn on it. It's not very ergonomic, and besides, it doesn't work in the documents. When you buy it, well, it's stated that it doesn't work. There's also the instrument with the ball, which allows for turn coordination. It's also an old model, and indeed in the documents it says that it doesn't work. The autopilot doesn't work either. Only the engine and the door handles work on this plane. So that day he wants to leave, he wants to go on a flight to the north, and so he gets into his plane as directed by the air traffic controller. There's a little misunderstanding at first because of the weather, but in the end he gets permission to leave, to take off. In any case, after that he does what he wants, he takes off and heads north. He heads straight toward the clouds. When you look at the side profile of his flight, you realize that as he heads north, he's actually descending. It's very common for pilots to do this by mistake. They're heading toward a cloudy area and then they think, oh, I'm going into the clouds, I'll descend. So they descend, and when they descend, they'll have 5 minutes of respite. 5 minutes later, oh, it's even lower, so we'll descend again. But in reality, these clouds are creating a veil that's slanted, which sometimes goes all the way down to the ground. It acts as a trap, literally, so you keep going lower and lower with no way out in those situations, but it traps a lot of people. We're talking about an experience here, the 60 flight hours, but let me tell you something else. The parents, by buying that plane in a way without meaning to, were dooming their son. I'll tell you why. You should know that when you're in an aero club and you go to rent a plane, well, you also have a certain number of safeguards. You show up, let's say, in terrible weather, and you didn't realize how bad it was, so you arrive and you say, yeah, hi, I'm going to take the Echo Charlie to go on a flight. There are always instructors, a chief pilot, other pilots who will say, whoa, stop, 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 did you see the weather? Those two guys, I just talked to them, they landed, it was extreme. Come, I'll show you, look at these people at that moment. Sometimes you can actually feel frustration. But these people represent thousands and thousands of hours and years of combined experience telling you, go home today, and that can save you. Many pilots would have died if it weren't for this feedback, but once he buys his plane, it's his. He does what he wants. He can go open the hangar, take out the aircraft, take off, and then leave. You see, that safety net is lost. Just to give you some social context, I don't want anyone to misunderstand the social conditions of that family. Not that they have any importance, but just, let's say, out of loyalty to the story. This kind of device sells for 50,000, 60,000 euros. If the owner is in a hurry to get rid of it, you can negotiate even lower. Moreover, if one of the parents puts 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 euros on the table, the bank can lend the rest. Since it's a child who wants to become an airline pilot, it was quite appropriate for his parents to invest in his training. And then later on, the aircraft will be sold anyway, and they'll get their money back, almost all of it. except that this purchase may have happened a little too early in his life. He takes off, heads north, and then at some point what was bound to happen happens. At some point he finds himself completely surrounded by clouds with zero visibility, and the attitude indicator, the artificial horizon, doesn't work. The turn coordinator, which can help when it works, because when it works, and especially on modern versions, when I say modern, I mean the last 40 years, not World War II era, actually there's a little airplane on it. And cognitively, when you're stressed with adrenaline, it's much easier to know which direction you're turning if you look at the turn coordinator. Because when you're turning right, the airplane goes right, and when you're turning left, the airplane goes left. It's extremely simple. And under stress, when your mental abilities are affected, well, that instrument can save you, even if it doesn't tell you whether you're climbing or descending. That's the artificial horizon. It helps you keep the wings level easily. So he's going to call the control tower, he's going to call on the frequency, and it's going to be someone panicked who's speaking. You can hear a heavy breathing reaction, he's hyperventilating. And then he's going to call on the frequency saying, I'm a visual flight rules pilot, a visual flight pilot. I accidentally entered the clouds. Do you see me? Do you see me?
780, we're listening, VC. You have the pilot. Please, VC, you're lost. VC, please. VC, see me? I have no VLR. I mistakenly flew into weather. Visual flight rules. Stay calm. You've got to take a deep breath and calm down. Just looking for a calm down. Do not panic.
There is this exchange that will begin with the air traffic controller who will try to calm him down. He is also a pilot himself, and at one point he will even tell him, I am a pilot. I have also found myself in those situations. I was able to get through it, and you will get through it today.
November 06 Whiskey.
It looks like you're headed dead south. I want you to know I'm a pilot too. I've been in the same situation, and I know it's a little bit scary, but we're going to get you through it. You're doing a great job. Just keep listening to what we're telling you. November 06 Whiskey, control inputs. Just a little bit more pressure to the left, just pressure to the left, just a little bit.
The problem is, he's giving him directions, he's giving him instructions, but this young pilot can't follow them. In truth, what he's doing is making turns non-stop. He's doing 360-degree turns all the time, all the time. Sometimes he does them to the left, sometimes he does them to the right. At one point, the pilot says over the radio, let go of the rudder pedals, the rudder control, because maybe in the stress of the moment, he was pressing down on the pedals with his feet. And then this will give an angle to the rudder. And if you do that, you destabilize the plane, and then it tends to keep turning. The air traffic controller insists with him, and then he finally takes his feet off and puts them flat on the floor. But the further we go, the more desperate it's going to get. Sometimes he says he even feels like he's on his back, repeating, I'm on my back. That's spatial disorientation, complete disorientation, especially since they're without instruments, and then the air traffic controller has to reassure him. He says, no, you're not on your back, you're not on your back, you're not. If you were on your back, you would be descending. I don't see descending. At times he says, I'm stalling. He feels like he's about to stall. And then it keeps going like that, and it's going to spread out. If you want, I can make another video for you with the full transcript and translation. It'll last 25 minutes for 25 minutes. We have this controller telling everyone to be quiet on the frequency, be quiet. And he's going to talk to this pilot, telling him, don't trust your senses, don't trust your instruments, listen to me, listen to me. He's going to give him instructions calmly, telling him not to make any sudden moves on the controls. He says, you're in control, everything is fine, but...
Okay, don't trust your instruments. Listen to me carefully. Don't trust your instruments. Trust me and what I'm telling you. I want you to look at your manual compass. Only look at your manual compass on top of that dashboard, and I want you to hold that 150 heading.
The further we go, the clearer it becomes that the outcome won't be favorable that day. And the pilot realizes it, this young pilot, and starts saying to him, tell my parents that I love them. Tell my parents that I love them. He's going to repeat it several times. I don't know where I am.
I am floating out of my chair. Engine failure. Tell my parents that I love them. Tell my parents that I love them. Please.
Remember to breathe and focus on flying the airplane first.
And the controller chooses to ignore that at first. He will ignore that statement, and later on, it might be the only time during the 25 minutes that he lets it go. Maybe he betrays a little doubt deep inside, but as a human, he had to say that, and they'll tell him, don't worry, we'll let them know.
To my parents that I love them, please.
November 06 Whiskey. We'll let them know that it looks like you're 2,000 feet. Do you see any ground yet? You might be breaking out underneath the clouds.
But he keeps struggling with him. And actually what happens is that after a while, he wants, if you will, the radar controller who is following on radar. He wants to get him out of the clouds. He wants to help him get out of the clouds, either from below, but when the clouds are almost touching the ground, so he can't. By the way, at one point the pilot says, I saw the ground. Barely he sees the ground, and then the ground disappears again. Maybe that was the opportunity. I'm not saying it's the solution, but maybe it was the chance to dive down and get out from under those clouds. If we see them, if we see a gap and we see that they're not touching the ground. Honestly, if within 10 seconds we dive and go for it, we still have a chance. In any case, after a certain amount of time, the plane will climb, and then the next second, it will dive sharply, so it will dive very hard. The pilot will shout that he loves his parents. For editorial reasons, I chose not to share that part of the audio with you. It's public, it's everywhere, but it's very moving. And I decided not to include it in the edit because we're more on a technical channel. So there you go, you understand, he got hurt. You can imagine these aren't situations of prosperity. Obviously, he came out from under the clouds. Maybe he had never come out from under the clouds before. Probably he realized he was going to die because, well, he came out from under the clouds, and the next moment he hit the ground. The plane was found in pieces. The plane was found completely shredded. The engine was working because at one point he said, the engine is feathered, the engine is feathered. But actually, it's just impressions, you know. Once you're completely disconnected from your senses, you start imagining anything. In reality, you picture yourself on your back, climbing, descending, or going left when you're really going right. We're not made to be in the clouds. And actually, the engine was working perfectly. We found that the gyroscopes, the gyroscopic instruments, that meant the artificial horizon and also the turn indicator. We found that they were working, the gyroscopes, they were spinning, but that doesn't mean anything. Just because the gyroscope spins, I've seen a lot of these instruments. Yes, the gyroscope spins, you can even hear the whistling and everything, but they indicate anything, so it's not in itself a reliable indication. And then this young man, he gets killed, that's clear, he's dead. He tested positive for cannabis, but a TSB says that it might not have influenced his judgment that day. But as a pilot, you should never ever test positive for cannabis. It's clear that's not something that should ever happen in a pilot's life. In any case, one dead, plane destroyed, grieving family, and another lesson. We didn't learn anything from that accident actually, because honestly it was bound to happen. It's not like we learned something, it made aviation progress. No, it was useless. It's just a death, a pointless death that just adds to endless statistics. So my friends, thank you for watching this video until now. Thanks to those who support this channel on Patreon. They're the ones who bring you these videos. And then I'll see you in the next one. See you very soon.